Hey pilots, DrainMan here. Welcome back to my channel. This is part 2. If you guys need part 1, you can go back. I hope you enjoy. Let me grab the pin connector. All that kind of stuff right now is the next thing to do. You know, figure out your screw size and stuff. Me, I already had it figured out like we did earlier. I found that I was going to use a 12 millimeter, and that's a good size for me. Now, do I know for sure it's going to just pop in and fit like a glove? No, I don't, but that's the whole point of building, you know, is you're just going to go step by step until you get it. Alright, these look like they line up. I need to flip it over. There we go. Just making sure they line up good. Now, putting the battery lead out the side. Not on the dark matter. We want to go out the back. Yeah. Alright. Let's cock it at a good angle, something that I feel comfortable soldering with. I want you guys to do the same, and then we're going to grab a couple screws and temporarily hold this down. See what we're doing? Just going to put a screw here, and we'll put another one caddy corner. And then what that's going to do is that'll hold everything right in place for us, but without having the flight controller right on top of us, keeping it hard for us to work. Make sure it's secure, and then I need to check my wire lengths. I want to show you guys the first one, and then I'll speed through the next because there's no need to watch me do the same thing 4 times again. Alright, grab your 3 wires, get your cutters, whack some of them off. I mean, you know, measure, do your counting, make sure you're cutting at a good length. For me, right here is going to be good. Snip. Throw those away. And then we're going to go ahead and strip the wires. And 1. And 2. And 3. Alright, 3 wires because it is a brushless motor. A little bit more on this one. Okay. Next, tin your wires. Always tin your wires. Don't be lazy and skip this step. Get her nice and hot. There you go. Got it. Alright, and last one. Alright, now we're tinned up. We're going to go ahead and grab the tweezies. I like to go in order so my wires are clean when I lay them against the arm. You know, they don't have to be perfect, but, you know, we want it to look semi-decent, you know. So I hold it up on there, and then I get my heat ready and drop her down. And that's it. There's really not much to it. Does it fold back? Yeah. Alright, that one's a little bit long, but it's going to be completely okay. Because if I need to do any repairs or if I need to mess with it later, I'm not going to be totally out of wire. You know, I'll have something to play with. You don't want to cut yourself short every time and do the exact amount. Some guys do. Actually, a lot of guys do. And, you know, you guys are going to develop your own way of doing things. And, you know, do it your way. That's what this is all about. Alright, now we got this last one on. Boom. Alright, let's get a zip tie together. Do they? Yeah, they're good. Alright, grab a zip tie. Loop her under. And then flatten them out. And zip tie it. There we go. Alright, tuck her in there nice and neat. Nice and tight. And then let's snip it. Looking good. Alright. Snippy snippy. And we're going to go ahead and rinse and repeat 3 more times. Okay, now all our motor wires are on. They're soldered on. We've got them zip tied. The ESC is pretty much ready to go. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our Crossfire ready, and then we're going to be ready to mount this flight controller. So the first thing you want to do is put on your antenna. If you're rocking an Immortal T, you can't put on your antenna first. You need to slide over your heat shrink first. I always use clear heat shrink on the Crossfire, or if I'm doing a VTX as well, because you got some LED lights that are used as indicators and you want to know what's going on. Make sure you measure so you're cutting the size. They give you a little bit extra. So I've seen some guys go ahead and just slide the whole thing over. That ain't going to hurt nothing to have some extra. I'm going to slide mine on. I like mine to look a little bit cleaner. Once you got it on, go ahead and heat that baby up. Nope, she slid off. Slide it back on. You got one hand because you got the heat gun in the other hand. Here we go. Alright, looking good. Look at that. Alright, next we're going to go ahead and pre-tin for our battery leads. We're going to use XT60 on this one. I would say go ahead and turn your iron up. I always keep my iron at 850, so it's already hot. But for you guys, if you do solder at 600, 700, something like that, now's the time to go ahead and kick that iron up, or you're going to fight with this thing, I'm telling you now. Even at 850, it can take a minute to get all this solder nice and hot. Because you need it a little liquidy, so that way you're able to stick to it and be good to go. Now I need to pre-tin our leads. These are thick wire. This is 12 gauge wire, so I got to tin the top, and then I'll flip it, and I'll tin the bottom as well. That way you got solder flowing through the whole thing. I find the battery lead to be important. You know, that's where all the beginning power comes from, so I feel like having a good, strong, thick solder with a good connection is very important. So I get mine really wet, and I get it really thick. Alright. Now let's go ahead and slap this baby on. Get your tweezers because you're going to heat the whole thing up with no problem. See, even at 850, it takes a second for that to get hot. There we go. Gotta push there. Look at that. That's nice. Alright, let's get the positive done. Make sure you're checking. Look for your plus and your minus indicators. Roll it. Throw a little extra on there. Yep, she's looking good. Looking real good. Isn't that crazy how that sticks like that? Even at this temperature, it's still. Okay. I'm liking. Alrighty. See if she's hot. If she's getting really hot, don't be afraid to try to cool it down. Maybe blow on it a little bit. Set it by a fan. You don't want it to overheat and fry your ESC before you even get to use it. That wouldn't be any fun. Alright, now we've got our main pin connector that's going to go from our ESC to our flight controller. That's something that's going to be important to plug in. We went over this already, making sure that your connector, that your pins are in the right orientation, because your ESC is going to give off, for example, voltage. You want to make sure that that wire is going to the exact same place on the flight controller. So check out your mounting, kind of figure out where you want to place it. I had a couple set screws in here that we went over. You want to pull those out. Now's a good time to pull those out. And then there are, for this ESC, where the screw sits or where the standoff sits, the MOSFET, if you can see it, the MOSFET is a little bit higher in one spot than it is on the other spot. So they make these little guys here. See them? They make these little clips of PCB here, and you got to put those in place. And what you'll do is you'll set them with the flat part touching like the board area that's raised up. And after you got all four there, you'll be able to move forward. This part can be pretty precise and get frustrating. Looks like I forgot to grab my heatsink. You're going to want to put that on. Let me just set these here real quick. Get this last one. I use tweezers to place them. My fingers are too fat. If I tried to hold those and place those, forget it. I'd be here all day. You guys would be off watching another video. Alright, heatsink time. Give this a quick peel. And then you're going to place this on top. This is going to help disperse the heat. Very important in my opinion, especially with a 4-in-1 like this. I mean, look at this. We've got 4 rows of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 MOSFETs. I mean, we're doing our deal here. So I like to get these covered with this. I mean, it came with it for a reason, right? You don't want to use something soft. This tweezer is not a good idea. You're going to end up ripping it or something. So I'm going to use the tongue part of a toothbrush. And I'll use this rubber back here in a second. And I'll get it. There we go. There we go. See, now we can see our line, so we know we're on good. It ain't going to come off. And it's tight. It'll do its job. Nothing's going to touch. I mean, this is how you want it to look. Just like this. Alright, now we can go back to playing with these annoying things. These things drive me nuts. Trying to get them all lined up and perfect. I find that if you set them there and then stick your tweezer in the hole, it'll kind of like pre-align, see? It'll like align it for you, kind of. Get them all lined up. Get them all where you want them. And the last one, which fell and was hiding from me. We're going to get this one put right here. And then let's get our flight controller put on top. Make sure you got the correct orientation. The most important thing with this board is going to be to make sure that your USB connection is sticking out the side, so that way you have access to it. That's one of the great things about FlightOne. When it's time to set it up, you'll just point your quad on the nose and FlightOne will do the rest. Alright, let's go ahead and set these screws in. I like to start them all a little bit, and then I'll come back and lock them all down, make sure they're all perfect. I don't know if you remember in the beginning, you would have had to have watched part 1 of this video. If you did, then you would have noticed we started the screw and we left a bunch hanging off when we put on our spacer. And the only reason for that is because the spacer also has threads. So if you don't do that, you're going to end up, by the time your screw is tight inside of the female portion of the frame, your grommet's going to be so squished, so sandwiched, and you're not even going to have any of that little flexing movement that you need, you know. Basically soft mount. You won't be soft mounted anymore. You might as well hard mount it. And at that point, you're going to introduce so much noise, you're going to have nothing but problems. All right, let's go ahead and get a closer look here. We're going to go ahead and fine tune these screws, make sure they're right where we want them. We don't want our grommets too tight, too loose. We don't want none of that. So I'm going to take a moment and get all of these put in perfectly. Give it a little wiggle. Look at that. That's perfect. Might even be a little bit too loose. Give it another crank or two. That way I got it just right. All right, this is going to go ahead and wrap up for part 2. I'm hoping that I'll see you guys during part 3. Make sure you stay tuned for part 3.